So with me, I have Purity Wanjiru from Accurex, a consultancy firm. So basically today we are going to take you through dealing with change and uncertainty at workplace or even in your own where you're staying in your life. So basically this topic came as a result of what is happening. I know that a lot is happening, like we've had to undergo through so much changes in our lives, and especially at this time. So I found it necessary that we get a person to like take us through this topic. Even for us as a company, I know we are still a startup. I think Rinia was there for 3 years, but now Pulse, we are back to basics. So again, that is a lot of change that it's very hard for most of us to like embrace. A lot of changes also in the structure, in the way people are coming and living in the organization. So I think Purity here and her colleague Richard, who should also join us for this talk, will take us through some of these changes and also maybe give us hope. And then at the end of all this, we'll have a session where we'll have the Q&As, and then we'll be able to like close it all. So karibu, and thank you everybody for joining this session, and to you, Purity.
Thank you, Sana. Caroline, thank you so much for even inviting us for this particular webinar. Richard has not yet joined us. I'm not so sure where he's held up, but I hope he's able to join us before we end this particular session. But I take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this particular webinar. Let us learn as much as we can. Let us pick a few lessons here and there as we continue. The entire of this session will take about 1 hour. So from now until about 6:15. The session, we divided it into two parts. The first one is a presentation, which will take 45 minutes. The other part will be a Q&A session, which will take about 15 minutes if you allow us. So I will start by starting this particular presentation. If you have any questions, kindly put them on the chat box on, I think on your window. If you're using your phone or your laptop, you're able to see the chat box, so you can place any questions that you might have during this particular session. So we'll start. The topic today is dealing with change and uncertainty during a crisis. As we know today, I'm told is week 7 of the crisis since it started in Kenya. I think that was around 12th or 14th of March. And you can imagine all this particular period of time, we have been confined to one space. For me, I've been the most unfortunate during this crisis because when the first case in Kenya was announced, I was in Kilifi. So immediately I thought I should come back to Nairobi. I came to Nairobi, I stayed around for another 2 weeks. I got bored. So I decided, let me go home. And home is out of Nairobi. And then somehow the president decided to lock down Nairobi. So I was caught up at home. Then after I waited for the 21 days to come to an end. Then by the time I thought he will uplift the lockdown of Nairobi, he extended it for another 21 days. Then I was like, what? And as you can see, that is one crisis that can even cause a lot of stress. And I see a lot of people today experiencing even depression, withdrawal syndromes. Maybe you are an extrovert. You like to interact with people. You like meeting with people. You love chatting with people. But for the first time in a very long time, you've been locked down in your own house. So how do we deal with all these changes and uncertainties that are surrounding us, and also the fear factor? Because I believe most of us are not worried more about the change, but it's the fear that is bringing that particular change. So we'll discuss a few pointers here and there, like the concept of working from home, how you can motivate yourself, how you can motivate your team, especially if you're a team leader. How are you able to bring together all these people through this particular crisis? And we're not so certain how long this particular crisis will take, how long it will take. So we must embrace ourselves. and keep our minds together that it can run for another month, or it can run for another 6 months or 1 year or 2 years. We never know how all this will end. And as such, we need to put our focus on the main goal, survival. I've seen a few memes going around, like people are saying the most important bit of this season is only to survive. Like you need to wake up in the morning and go to sleep in the evening. And maybe that is all that is required during all this particular period of time. So let's see. We'll start with what's a crisis. A crisis, by the most basic of terms, is an event that is going to lead to unstable or dangerous situation affecting individuals, groups, communities, or the whole society. This is according to Wikipedia. And and as we can see from the current crisis we have with COVID-19, it has caused the most instability like we've ever had for the longest time. A few of us have lost our jobs, or our businesses are getting massive losses. A few of us are still not sure if we will have a job tomorrow or will be able to survive the day after. I see people, especially those who are below the poverty line, they are wondering, where am I going to get the next meal? And that is the kind of instability that crisis brings us. The other aspect of crisis is danger. We know about this particular disease. From Wuhan to Kenya, it could have taken a couple of months, or even it could have taken a couple of days before it got to us. But the moment you hear that there's a disease going around, and it's a disease you can't see, you don't know where you can contract it from, so it brings up an element of danger. You no longer want to hug your friends, you no longer want to hug your parents or your children, because you don't know exactly who is the carrier of this particular disease. And as you can see from that definition, it not only affects individuals, but it also affects groups, communities, and the entire society. Who would have thought? Myself personally, I will work from home for 2 months consecutively. I don't think I've ever taken a leave day more than a week since I started working, and that is 10 years of work. So you can imagine being confined to my own house for 2 weeks. It was stressful enough. I almost got to the level of depression. And that is not the space that you want to experience, especially at this particular time. So another definition there is crisis is a time when difficult and important decisions have to be made. And this we've seen a lot of organization or a lot of people making very difficult but important decisions, because like immediately the first case in Kenya was announced. I remember I was in Kilifi, but when I I was checking the news, I saw almost that particular afternoon, so many people had flooded Carrefour. And I was wondering to myself, by the time Nifike Nairobi, will I find anything on the supermarket shelf? And then I saw another difficult decisions where the father, who is the head of the family, has to decide. The mother and the children have to go to rural areas, Ushago, because Nairobi life is about to get unbearable. The same situation I see for corporates. Someone has to sit down and decide who has to go and who has to be left. And in other circumstances, the decision has still to be made. Like we have to give people, for example, a pay cut. And this pay cut is maybe going to be 50% or 20%, whichever. As you can see, this crisis is making people to make very difficult, but yet very important decisions to be able to safeguard the future that is ahead of us. So how do we tackle all these crises, especially in terms of change and uncertainty? So we'll move on swiftly to self and team motivation, because by the end of the day, you have yourself. And for those of us who are managers or leaders, business leaders or supervisors, we have people who are relying on us to be able to lead them and to give them a sense of hope, a sense of direction of where, even the future as uncertain as it could be, they're able to see it from our eyes. So the first step is motivation, and one is to define what is motivation. Motivation is a factor that encourages people to give their best performance and help in reaching goals. So when you hear people talking about motivation or psych or morale, they're just looking for ways to be able to encourage themselves. And motivation normally starts with you. Before you get to motivate someone else, you have to be self-motivated yourself. And why I say about this, there's a quote that says you can't fill a cup, you can't fill from a cup that is empty. What does that mean? You must have a cup and it must have something in it to be able to fill it for someone else. As we move forward, we'll see how to motivate ourselves. So the next definition is self-motivation. It is the ability to be able to do what needs to be done without influence from other people. Because today we see a lot of influence going around. And I know, especially from your business perspective, you do a lot of influencing with stories, with articles, with all these things. But with self-motivation, it has to come with it. You don't need to look for someone else to motivate you to be self-motivated. I know a few people of late, they're doing different things. Others have started a health, fitness, like culture or something to make them feel that they're alive. You know, others are reading books, others are writing, others are doing so many things that they could not have done normally when they were before this particular crisis. So moving on is we say self-motivated people. A self-motivated person can find the reason and strength to complete a task, even when challenging, without giving up or needing another person to encourage them. What do we mean by this? Because of this particular circumstance, and I know most of you, if not all of you, are working from home, and sometimes it's even difficult to get out of bed. And that's one I'm saying it from experience. There are days that it's morning and I don't want to wake up because one, I'm not so sure what I'm doing after I wake up, or there's a lot of crisis just going around. But you see, when you're self-motivated, you need to be able to find that reason, one, to wake up, and even the strength to get out of that particular bed. So with self-motivated people can find the reason and strength to complete a task. And this particular task could be a personal task, an organization task, because now in this particular era, we've come to realize we can actually work from home, you know, and some of our homes are not very conducive for working, either because you're living with other people or you have children, young children who need your attention all the time, or what else? Your home does not accommodate work. Maybe you don't even have a work desk, or you don't even have a comfortable chair to work on. So, but you see, amidst all this particular crisis, work still has to be done. Then, how else are you able to manage the crisis itself? So, I will start the how to motivate yourself and your team. These are a few pointers on how best you are able to motivate yourself and your team. So number one is steer yourself. It starts with you. Today, tomorrow, the day after, the week after, all that time, the month after, it has to start with you. Because getting someone from outside to motivate you when you're not motivated is a very hard task. And this particular task could not even be possible for the other person. So it has to start with you. Look for what gets you there. Look what uplifts your mood. It could be like listening to music, watching a movie, cooking, whatever gets you to that point of motivation is what you need to be doing constantly. In another forum, when we were talking around this particular topic, we were saying, get a routine. Like on normal days, for example, myself, I wake up before Corona. I used to wake up at 5. I wake up at 5, I'm out of the house by 5:30, I'm in the office by 6. I do a lot of meetings before 9 a.m. Then after 9, I am able to go meet clients, talk to them. By 4, I'm out of the office. By 5, I'm in the house, and the routine continues. And you see, that one was very structured because I was working around Nairobi traffic. You know, because where I stay, if you leave on time, it will take you 30 minutes to my office. If you don't leave on time, it normally takes me 2 hours. So you see, I'm trying to work around all these traffic factors. But now all of a sudden, I'm working in the house, there's no traffic. Uh, in the office, before Corona, I used to do a lot of takeouts, like eat from outside. Now I have to be able to make my own meals. So you see, you have to be able to come up with a new structure that you are able to work around with. There's no need of waking up at 5 anymore, you know. And today I find myself waking up at 8 and wondering, who you need me? And as stupid as that could be, because I don't need to beat a 1 hour traffic. So that means I can still sleep 1 hour more or something like that. So I think steering yourself, I've discussed steering yourself and making a plan. Try to have something that is a bit structured. Wake up the 8 a.m. Maybe you start with a breakfast or you start with taking a shower. I really don't know what works for you. Others start by doing home workouts, like exercising, maybe using YouTube videos to get them to do home exercises, such things. Make sure you have a structure, because by having a structure, one, it avoids you from overworking, or two, on the other side, it helps you not to underwork, not to be able to, not to meet your goals. And also having a structure makes you not feel like you want to sleep all the time or watch movies all the time, because that one way or the other, it's going to affect your work. Number three is navigate conversations with care. Consider the audience, consider the people you're talking to. Today, it's a very sensitive time. One way or the other, people are affected. And when people are affected, others show on their faces, others don't show it at all. And you need to be very sensitive. As much as they are your work colleagues, or they're your friends, or they're your family, and you think you're very familiar with them and how even they operate. But try to when having conversations, be a bit sensitive. At this particular time, I think sensitivity will take us a long way than not being sensitive, because you don't know what kind of challenges people are going through at this particular period of time. Number four is be humble. We don't know when all these circles will come to an end. And we want to be as humble as possible, because you are not certain if it will last for a week, a month, 1 year. You are not so certain. A lot of facts, we don't have them today. And that point goes together with the following point, like, do not sugarcoat. If you're not so sure about what you're talking about, avoid talking around it, because one, it can backfire on you, and that is not something that you want. So be humble with your conversations. Do not sugarcoat things that you're not very sure of. This applies even to work. When you're not so sure about what you're talking about and it's related to your work environment, try to avoid sugarcoating it, because you might want to look like you're giving hope, but hope that is not feasible or that cannot be envisioned, then it's bad hope. And it will do you more bad than good in the long run. So moving on is be responsible. How you are able to motivate yourself and your team is being responsible. One, be responsible of yourself, because we need you in good health, and health includes physical, mental, spiritual. And you know, when we talk about mental health, at this particular time, we are having a huge crisis, especially in our country, around mental health. Because for the longest time, I don't think we even cared about mental health. But now it has reached a situation, we've seen a lot of suicidal cases coming up. We see a lot of frustrations. People are just firing, they're just firing on other people. And that is not a very good space to be in. So you need to be able to be responsible of your physical health, just be in good shape, eat the right food, drink enough water, keep hydrated, do all these things. Also take care of your mental health. And your mental health is influenced a lot by what is happening around you. And we see social media is coming up with all sorts of news, good news and bad news, all these sorts of news. And you want to pick the right thing to feed your brain, because by what you feed your brain with is what will determine how mental healthy you could be in the long run. So the last point is try to be consistent. Consistent is very important, and that goes with the second point we were making. If you're able to come up with a plan, then it means you're able to be consistent. You know, today I'm waking up at 8. The first 30 minutes is personal time. Maybe you do a bit of meditation, you do yoga, you do home exercises, whatever that works for you. You know, you could go for a run, you could go for a jog, whatever works for you. Then, you know, after that, I have a meeting for 2 hours. After that, it's almost lunchtime. I have to prepare a meal. Either you order takeout or you cook from your home, whatever works for you. But you have to be very consistent around it. By being consistent, what it gives you is a sense of stability. And what we're avoiding is that instability state. But being consistent, it shows you, like, this is a routine that I do. Even when your friends call you, when you are very tempted to go out with them, you'll be like, no. Niko na mpango, and this is what I'm going to follow through with. All right. I hope we can continue. I hope everyone is able to hear me and following.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. Moving on, challenges of working from home. When I was talking to Caroline, your HR, she tells me a lot of you are now working from home. And working from home comes with its own challenges. I'm telling you, for the first time in 10 years, I had to work from home, or I have been at home. And this was the worst experience ever so far, because when I came back, it was almost a total lockdown in Nairobi. People are not going to work. The town was deserted. So I decided, let me just chill out at home. Little did I not know I was not ready to work from home, because the first 2 weeks I almost did nothing. Because you see, the way you are talking about routines, waking up at 5, now I wake up at 5, I'm not so sure where to go, I'm not so sure what to do, it's too early. Like, that mode of uncertainty, it actually impacts our working from home. So these are among some of the challenges myself have experienced and other people have experienced from working from home. One is loneliness, especially for people who live alone. You know, you're used to wake up, even you don't know your neighbors. And that was my number one challenge. Where I stay, I am on the top floor, and I actually don't know anybody who lives in that particular apartment. And all of a sudden, I'm not so sure who to talk to, because one, I'm in the house. So one of the days I saw a few people basking in the sun. So I just went there and said, hello, I'm your neighbor here. My name is Purity. So even before, they were surprised, like, there's someone who lives in that apartment. And we've been neighbors for quite a while. So number one is loneliness. And this loneliness could also happen to people who live with other people, because you're not used to having, or they're not even used to having you around, you know. So it could go both ways. And as I'll give you another example. I told you I went home for about 2 weeks. Immediately after the lockdown, just before the lockdown in Nairobi. And when I went home, people from home, they don't understand how I can sit with a laptop for the whole day, you know. And when I'm asked, I'm saying I'm working, but people from home don't get that concept. I can sit down at home with a laptop and say that I'm working. So you see, there's that element of loneliness, regardless of how you see it. There's that element of loneliness, especially when we talk about working from home. And loneliness is a very unique attribute, because even when you're around people, you could feel lonely, and you are wondering, why am I feeling lonely? This house is full of people, it has children, it has adults, the activities going around, people are laughing. But when maybe you retrieve at your corner or at your bedroom, you are wondering, why am I feeling lonely? So that is one of the challenges of working from home. Number two is work distractions. From time to time, especially for people who are now actively working from home, every now and then you get instructions either from your manager, from your supervisor, from the business leader, like, Nifanye, do this, it's urgent. So you see, as much as you had planned today to wake up and do a report, but all these incoming requests are coming in, they keep distracting you from actually the main goal of working from home. Number three is domestic distractions. These ones we can't talk enough about them. Either you have a wife or you have a husband, you have children, you have relatives, you have all these sorts of people that are distracting you. And domestic distractions. The other day, I had a fight over at my neighbors, and I was not very keen about going out and finding out what was the problem. But when it actually escalated, I wanted to find out what is the problem. And when I approached them, actually, there was no problem from my perspective. It's only that the wife feels like the husband is watching too much of TV. Then I asked her, we're in a total lockdown. He's not able to go to work. So what is the alternative of staying at home? A lot of us will watch the TV or movies or whatever. So the wife says, I want him to be more active. I need to see him do something. Mwanaume ni kutoka nje. And I kept wondering, what do you mean? Like, mwanaume ni kutoka nje. Even maybe for him, he's even scared of getting out of the house, not to contract the disease that is within us. So you see, all these domestic distractions, you could be very focused, I want to work, but you have a nasty wife or you have a nasty husband and nasty children that are not making the environment very conducive for you to work. Number four is keeping your edge. Keeping your edge is being able to keep your calm. As much as there's this total crisis going around you, every day we wait at, I think Mutahi talks about 3:30. Everyone is hooked up on their TV just to see how many cases they'll report in that particular day. But you want to keep your calm. You want to be very level-headed. As much as people are saying Nairobi is going for a total lockdown, but you're like, sawa, wacha tuwafunge, but I still have to work. So these are some of the challenges. And I was saying in the previous slides, look at the information you're receiving, because your input really determines how you're going to react to situations. If your work is only to follow the worst of the worst news, then you're bound not to keep your edge. You'll always be on the nervous end. You'll always be almost depressed. You'll be stressed out of situations that are actually out of your hands. Number five is being your own office manager. And this one is very unique because for me, I've worked in office setups for a very long time. And until I was the position I am today, I've always been reporting to someone, and whenever you see the boss coming around or your manager or your supervisor, you pretend that you're busy working on your laptop. And now you don't have anyone to tell you, ile report umefikisha wapi, or then you no longer have a person coming to your desk every 2 minutes asking you what's the status update. This means we have to develop or know how to become our own office managers, because then there's not that constant following up. And as much as you could say, hey, my boss calls me every other day, every other minute to see what the progress, But by this point means some of us are not disciplined enough to work from home. And that one I'll say for a fact. And well, others have the work ethic like it's 8 hour office time. When today I don't think it's very practical to say let's work from 8 to 5 because we are different people. Some people are early risers. They prefer to work from early morning to midday. After midday, they forget about work. I see some people who work very well at night. And now this working from home is presenting those dynamics. Even before you know yourself which scale you lie on. Like, am I a morning person? Am I an evening person? Which works best for me? You just have to be able to be your own office manager for work to be done. Moving on, how can we overcome this? Because these are distractions, and you don't want these distractions to be the reason you lose a job that you currently have. A lot of people have lost so many of their jobs, and others have lost their source of livelihood. And you don't want that element of uncertainty to land on your doorstep. So, number one, how do you overcome these distractions when working from home? Is keep your schedule. I think this one I've talked about it more than enough times. Keep your schedule. Wake up, take a shower, put on decent clothes. I hear women we are specializing on deras. For 2 months, we've only been putting on deras in the house. But wake up, dress like you have a purpose. Like today, I'm going to work. As much as you're not going to step out of your door, but you dress for a purpose. Like Leo, Aki, I'm doing a bit of work. Do away with the pajamas. Do away with the stockings. Wake up, feel refreshed. Think today is the day that I'm purposing to work. So, so as much as you are busy working from home, treat day as if you are at an actual office. I don't know how many of us have set up like a workstation in their homes. I don't know, but that's a good place to start, especially when working from home. Somewhere you can say, "This is my office." A comfortable table, a very comfortable desk, because you don't want after these 2 months you're complaining about your back with pains and all these things. Because the moment you complain about back pain, it means whether you're working from your bed or you're working from a couch or you're working from the floor, whichever place you're working. So try to figure out in this small space that I have in my house, which can work best to be an office. Such that even when you wake up or people in your house see you sitting there, they actually know akokazi. I think I've discussed number one and number two together. Number three, take breaks, schedule breaks. Because in the office, I know we have time for tea, saine. So you see everyone waking up from their desk, going to the tea point, picking their teas, all this. So even at home, don't say I'll work until 5, then I'll take a break. Schedule breaks in between. Have time to go pick your water, do something, take a break. Because this monotony, you don't want it to break you. Because the more you think you are working, the more you're breaking yourself. So purpose to take breaks, even if it's 10 minutes, walk around the house, go to the balcony, see what your neighbor is doing, go down there, see if you can pick a conversation with someone, just for the sake of breaks. Because mental sanity, and this one we can't talk enough about it. Like, we want people, or we need you in the best mental state that you can be. Number 4 is limit distractions. And we've talked about all these distractions, either your children, the people you live with, life itself is distracting people, social media is distracting people. Just limit these amounts of distractions that can come on your way when you are working. The 5th point is plan ahead. Like, no, today is Thursday. No, what am I going to work on tomorrow? What am I going to work on next week on Monday, next week on Tuesday? That reduces the level of uncertainty. And I know some of us have to work with our managers to actually know what you're going to work on tomorrow. So initiate these conversations even with your bosses, your managers, your supervisor, and ask him, mkubwa, kesho tunafanya, so that even before you go to sleep today, you actually know what you're going to do tomorrow or the day after. By planning ahead, it gives you a certain level of certainty. Like you actually know what is happening before you. Other than you wake up that morning and you're surprised, you're no longer doing that thing, you're doing this. So try to organize or plan even ahead of time. Number 6, stay connected and communicate. Don't close yourself in your office or not in your office, in your home. This is the time that we actually need people. Wake up one morning, call someone, ask them, sijakuona for a while. Is everything okay with you? How is your family? How are you doing? How are you managing? Because I think it is in this presentation we'll talk about getting to know more about other people's families. Because this time, even your colleague could have someone who is a patient of coronavirus, and they don't know even who to talk to. So take that initiative to reach out to people. If you've not seen someone for a long time, or unamwonanga kwa WhatsApp, you no longer see him or her, just reach out and find out, are you okay? It could be the most simple of simple questions. I feel so nice when someone calls me, like out of the blue. They're like, I've just been thinking about you. I hope you're okay. And this checking out on people, as much as it will cost you credit, I don't think goodwill normally costs any person anything. All right, moving on. Measuring productivity at home. We've talked about all these working from home, the challenges, how we are able to overcome these challenges from working from home. But then we have to remember, amidst all these changes and uncertainty, work still has to go on. And when you have managed to manage, when you have managed to, I don't want to use the same word, when you have managed to overcome the element of uncertainty and change, then you are able to see, am I being productive or am I not being productive? Because this is the biggest challenge we're having with most of our clients' employees. They feel that they're working to their level best, but when you speak to their managers or supervisors, they feel like they're actually not doing anything. And that is where the element of productivity comes in. As much as you're able to work, are you able to be productive at the same time? So number 1 is maintain a result-oriented culture. Work is not just work. Let's be clear with that. Work has to be able to give you results. And these results are different for different people, for different roles, for different tasks. They're different. So you need to sit down and ask yourself, in this type of work that I do, what does the result look like? Such that when you're working, you can say, okay, now I'm able to work, and these are the kind of results that I'm expecting at the end of the day. Number 2 is set clear goals and deadlines. This working from home is really challenging. In a normal office day, our task could have taken a day because of teamwork. People are working together on a certain project, so you expect them to finalize very, very fast. Now you are almost left to be alone, and you're wondering, how am I able to set very clear goals? And the fact that we now have distance, like now people are working from different locations. But you need to ask yourself, especially if you're a manager or a business leader, like for every task that I'm giving, does it have goals? Are the goals clear to everyone in that particular team? And then, are we working on deadlines? Try to be a little bit more realistic, especially when setting deadlines, because this is a whole new space for all of us. What could have taken us a day, maybe today it takes us 2 days or 3 days. So just try to see what actually best works for your particular team. Number 3, form plan to plans to increase accountability. You could have WhatsApp groups, you could have Microsoft Teams, things that put people on toes, but you need to see how are we able to increase productivity. I've seen some organizations have installed apps for their teams that monitor. Purity was on the laptop from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Then the boss calls you and akuliza, where were you at 11? I did not see you log in, something like that. So you need to see how best you're able to increase accountability, especially during this time. Number 4, analyze important tasks. Since we are busy working from home, tasks are very important, both for the company, because today you say you are a startup, but in 10 years you no longer be a startup. The moment you cross the 3-year line, you no longer become a startup. People expect you, it's almost like a child, like you are 0 to 1 year, you expect him to be very dependent on people. Then they start working, then they need to start feeding themselves. So you see, the same happens for organizations. They have a timeline or a lifeline. Like we know from 0 to 1 year, you're on survival mode, Then by the time you get to 3 years, you need to be very stable and moving forward, employing more people, becoming a bigger brand, attracting huge investments, etc. So this is where you need to find out, are you able to analyze important tasks? And these important tasks, others are for immediate use and others are for the longevity or the prosperity of your organization. Then track progress on priority. For every task, you have to give priority or importance. Like of the 5 tasks, this is the most urgent and important. So we need to start working on this. Then if we have another element, then every task given has to have its own priority list. And I think that is where we talked on number 2, setting clear goals and deadlines. Number 6, keep track of hours and activities. Because today it's very easy to lose hours. And sometimes I feel like I'm losing hours. I wake up in the morning, kidogo kidogo, it's lunchtime. Even before I know it, giza ishaingia. And you ask yourself, leo nimefanya? So you need to be able to keep hours and track of your hours and activities. And I think this is where the schedule comes in. Because if you have a very particular schedule, if I do this, this has to follow, this has to follow, this has to follow. So when we are talking all this working from home, managing change, uncertainty, look at the bigger picture. 2020, as much as I hear a lot of people saying we'll be counting 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021. You see, they have skipped 2020. But in a business, you can't skip a year. As much as things were bad or you are reporting losses or whatever is happening, you can't skip a year. At one point, we will need to review employees for what they did for this particular year. If your manager today asks you, Purity, tell me what you have done since March 14th, can you really account for what you have done? Ama utamwambia, unajua boss, Corona happened. You see, that is not a reason you can give, especially in a business setup. You need to be able to trust the process. Like, as much as things are thick and tough, this year we still have to account for it. One way or another, we'll still have to account for this particular year. Then the last one is trust your employees. Managers, business leaders, the owners of this particular business, you have to be able to trust each other. Like if I send out work to Anne, she's going to do it. If I send work to Brian, he has to do it without me following up, without me issuing threats. Because I know this happens a lot in corporate. Threats almost make people work. And you don't want to, I would not wish to be threatened, especially this particular time. I'm already stressed by life itself, whatever is happening around me, then work to become another stress factor. We're almost coming to the end of this presentation. I think I have one more slide to present to you. So make sure you send in your questions if you have any question on this particular presentation, as I am winding up in the next about 5 minutes. So number what? Effective and efficient. When I was thinking about all these things around change and uncertainty, I thought like it's very important to discuss efficiency and effectiveness, because whenever we talk about work and productivity, we find like it's a very thin line. You think like if I work for more hours, I'm going to achieve more. When someone else will tell you, you actually don't need to work for 8 hours to achieve one project or one task at work. You only need to work for 2 hours. So you see, with work and productivity, we come from two different schools of thought. Others think it's the much time you're able to put, others think it's the effort that you put in. But when we discuss about all these things, you need to be able to find the balance by being effective and being efficient. So from this particular chart, I hope everyone is able to see it. Productivity means increased work output, which basically means I will work for more hours. And you don't want to be putting more hours and you're not able to see your results. So on the left side, you see effective, getting the right output. That's being effective. If you're told go harvest maize, by being effective is by the end of the day you have 100 or 10 bags of maize, So you'll focus on the tasks that support your vision. However, on the right side, you see what efficiency means. Efficiency means less input per unit of output. As much as you're able to harvest 10 bags of maize, which could take you even a whole day, you can do, I see machines in some developed countries like Netherlands that do harvesting of maize. That's being efficient and like being effective. So I will optimize my use of resources. So our takeaway point from this particular presentation, go thinking about, as much as we're in the midst of a lot of uncertainty in our lives and a lot of changes happening, how best am I able to maintain a work level that is pleasing, not only to your employer, but to yourself as a person? To finalize this, I don't know how many of you have had this notion. It was a great topic last year, creating a great place to work. And by creating a great place to work, especially now that we are working from home, our workplace should be very great, because I believe like a lot is happening at our convenience, especially for me. I've come to realize I do not hate traffic. I just hated waking up early, And I keep wondering or asking myself, what will happen when we get the leeway to go back to work? Do I still want to be leaving the house at 5? Or I'll just opt for this new lifestyle, working from home? So creating a great workplace I think this is something every organization should be aiming towards. Like, as much as a lot of people are working from home, while others might be working on site or away from their homes, how are we able to bring this entire family of our organization to become a great place to work? Number one is take the pressure off. We already have enough pressure in our lives. Life is stressing the hell out of us. The cost of living has really increased over the past couple of months. We have enough pressure. Our family is pressuring us enough, and you don't want work to be another source of pressure or stress. Like, work should be this enjoyable place people go to. I had I know you know him, Mainakageni, saying, the day he will wake up and feel he's going to work, that is the day he will resign. And what does that tell you? Like, he takes work as something that brings him joy, something that brings him pleasure, and that is what great place to work means. Like if you see your boss's call, you'll not say, ah, uyu tena, you know. Or when you are told from tomorrow we are going back to work, you'll be like, ah, oh no, why? You know, you don't want people to have bad feelings about work. So number one is taking the pressure off. Number two is practice active, frequent, and honest communication. You can't be told enough about communication. Communication has to be there. As much as now you feel like, "Ah, I can stop talking to X." You can't. It's communication has to be there, and it has to be active. It has to be frequent. It has to be honest. Sometimes you need to communicate very hard decisions, but if that is your role, then you have to do it with the honesty that comes with it. Number three, host meetings without agenda. These I've seen with several organizations happening now. You can try it in your organization, just see how people will be receptive to it. What happens is they create a Zoom meeting like this one, but anybody can join at any time. Say, for example, you open the meeting for 2 hours, for example. So during this 2 hours, someone can log in with their child, or if they're having lunch, they talk to whoever is already joined on that particular meeting. So it doesn't have any particular order, but it keeps the family, the work family connected. You know, like, you know, every day at 10, you can log in on Zoom and have a chat with anyone who's on the other side or who has already logged in on the Zoom meeting. So that's a very good idea. I feel like it keeps people connected. You know, you don't have to talk to someone because of work. You can just log in, find out what they're doing, how is their family, etc. Number four, this one I think I had already talked about it. Ask your employees about family. Call your colleague, just tell them, leo sikupigisa bia kazi. I just want to know how is your family. Are they safe wherever they are? Are they in Nairobi? If they're in Nairobi, how are they dealing with the crisis? If they're in Mombasa, how what's their feeling? All that. It's the simple things that make life very pleasurable. And also, it's the same simple things that makes our workplaces very great place to work. Number five, remind employees about resources available to them. I don't know what kind of resources are available at PALS, but I see some organizations, they have already contracted counselors, psychologists, therapists, just people to talk to them if you feel you're stressed, you're depressed, just someone who you can log in and talk to them, or even policies that are available. Because people might think, I'm working from home, can I take leave or can I not take leave? You think that's a very difficult scenario, because you can ask a manager, let me take 2 days leave. They ask you, kwa nini siko kwa nyumba? So just find a way to communicate with your employees, especially if you are a business leader or a manager, of the resources available to them. The next one is caring during a crisis. I don't know what your organization has done for people who are in need, and these people could even include your fellow employees. You don't know what people are really going through this particular time. The fact that they have very fancy houses or very fancy cars, people normally suffer in silence. So you need to be able to front that face that you are carrying. Like, even if I come and tell you about my problems, you'll not go, ah, you look like you have money. That should not be the case at this particular time. You just have to handle everyone with a lot of sensitivity and show that you are caring. Caring has never hurt anyone. The fact that you can give someone a minute to listen to their problems or whatever they are saying, then that shows you're caring, and you're even going a step further for that. The next one is establish clear and consistent business processes. You might think now we are working from home, there are no rules, there are no regulations, that one doesn't happen. You just have to be very clear and consistent about business processes. This is work, and this is what you expect to be done by the end of the day, or by the end of this particular period. The second last point is adapt to change quickly and thoughtfully. I've had someone ask a question: how do you adapt to change? Adapting to change, I think step number one is acceptance. You accept, I'm in this particular situation. I would have loved to be in a totally different situation, but somehow I've caught myself in this particular situation. And by acceptance, I think it's the first level to adapting to change, because the fact that you accept. Say for example, I really, even today, I really hate going outside, like in the market, in the supermarket, because I'm fearing who will I meet that will make me become sick. But the fact that I accept the disease is within us, and I can't see it, and I can't go screening people on the streets, then it makes me become even aware of myself. But that even if I go to the supermarket, I try to be as conscious of the people around me as possible. So number one, to quickly adapting to change quickly and thoughtfully is one, acceptance. Self-awareness. Self-awareness really takes people very far. Because if you know these are my fears, or these are my strengths, or these are my weaknesses, then it makes you adapt to change more quickly than ever. The last point is create room for flexibility. This is the time to be lenient with people. This is the time to give people room, either to voice their opinions or to be able to share their thoughts. Just try to be able to accommodate everyone in their own particular space. So without much further ado, I think I'm done with this particular presentation. If there are any questions, I will take them at this time. Over to you, Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Purity, for the session. I think
Welcome.
it was very, very educative, and we've learned a lot. Of course, some of these things it's always good to be reminded of, because
Yes.
that has been our life for now.
Mm.
So I don't know if guys you have any questions. I think you can also like email me if you have any questions, and then I can direct them to Purity.
Yes.
Also, after this, we'll have like a feedback feedback form that I'll share with you, so that we can be able to give feedback based on what we've learned, if there are areas that we feel they were not covered, so that we can see how to move forward with this topic. But all in all, I'd like to thank all of you for your participation, for your
Sorry,
patience. I know
Caroline.
we've had, yes.
Sorry, before you conclude the meeting, I think I have a question. Yeah.
Uh-huh,
Yes,
uh-huh.
please.
Yeah. Sorry.
Rachel.
So yeah. So my name is Rachel. I just wanted to ask about. I know you've addressed about the need to be consistent.
The what?
Um, the need to be consistent,
Yes.
and how a routine helps out,
Mm-hmm.
and of course that self motivation. But even with the self motivation, the reality is that some days you are literally feeling just burdened and overwhelmed, and there's
Mm-hmm.
still the expectation of work has to go on. What
Yes.
would be your advice on like some quick fixes
Mm-hmm.
to do whenever that happens? Because yes, you can be a self-motivated person, you often are, but then there are some days where you literally feel like the world is on you're carrying
On
the
your
weight
shoulder.
of the world in your on your shoulders. So do you have like some tips that are quick fixes that maybe you can someone can do so that they can just quickly get back into making things happen? Because at the end of the day, nobody is waiting for to say you're taking
All
action.
right. Thank you so much, Rachel. And what you're saying is it's now very common. And even with me, sometimes I wake up, I feel like similarly too. And that one will not work, especially if you're in a formal work environment, because people are relying on you for reports, people are relying on your input on one way or another. So for me, I'll give you what works for me, which can be applied to you, or I'll also give you some universal tips. One is exercise. If you feel like you're feeling low in terms of energy or just the focus, I know one is exercise. You can do a jog, you can do a walk, you can do running, whatever that makes your heartbeat raise. That one is definitely going to make your brain wake up. Another thing which I don't think is very recommendable, especially if you have weight issues, is sweets. Something sweet, because there's something sweet will inject adrenaline in your system. Like me, I am not a soda person, but when I feel like my energy is too low, I do Fanta Orange, the 500 ml one, and almost immediately I feel like I'm more awake, I'm more alert. I know there's people who do coffee, there are people who do tea, something that will just pick your brain and make it active. Another one is get to what we call meditation or quietness or your peace. Like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm going to switch my phone off for the next 10 minutes just to retain my calmness. Because sometimes when you feel like that, it is caused by nervousness or anxiety. Like you're wondering, sawa, nimeamuka alafu. So you see, that's uncertainty, that anxiety that is bombarding you. You need to get to a space to regain back your calmness. And I know meditation is not very common in Kenya, but meditation could also mean just going to a seat or your bed and just being silent for a few minutes and see if you're able to regain that calmness, or it's calmness actually, because when you feel like you're in that state, your brain is all over the place. So you need to bring your brain to one still place. The other one is let me remember. I had it in my head. I've talked about exercise, sugar, or caffeine. I've talked about meditation, yoga. Oh, number 3 is do something that. Number 4 is do something that you love. Like, I know when I'm a bit sad, or that state that I really don't want to do something. I love watching magic shows. It's not common, but I love watching magic shows. And I keep telling myself one day I'll go to London. London, there's a school of magic. They take people for like a 1 week course. So check out my shows in future. But that aside, the fact that I'm fascinated by magic, when I watch 2, 3, 4 shows of around magic, I feel like I'm getting happy, I'm getting excited, I have a new perspective of life. So look, of the 4 things, what could actually work for you? And when we talk about these things, is because you become aware of yourself. Like, the more you become aware of yourself, like, you wake up in the morning and be like, you can just tell this will be fixed by tea or a cup of tea. Or you wake up in the morning, you feel like, I just need to go for a run or a jog, or I do a bit of exercises in the house, etc. So invest a bit more time to know who you are as a person, and also identify what triggers these emotions, because there could be triggers. I see a lot of people get very sad after news at 7 p.m. or at 9 p.m. And if that is a trigger for you, then you need to stop watching news. Because after this news, after you hear floods, you happy, the corona cases are on the rise, then you hear you what, it will just bring your mood down. So also look for triggers. What normally happens before you get to that particular state? And the moment you identify the triggers, then you can start avoiding them. That will be my take. I'll take any other question if there is. Rachel, also, if I've not explained better, let me know.
Okay, so I think
All
once
right.
again, thank you very much, Purity. And thanks a lot to the amazing Pulse team for your availability for this session. Any other questions that might arise related to this topic, please do send
Sure.
me an email or a message on the same, and I'll forward the same so that we can all overcome this uncertainty and a lot of fears, and look hopeful to a
Mm,
better tomorrow. Yeah, because at the end of the day, all these things will come to pass,
for sure.
and we need each other for this. So let's continue to remain strong together, and let's continue to work together for the common goal of making sure that the goals and objectives of Pulse are met, regardless of how hard the situation is. Yep. So thank you guys, and bye for now.
Thank you so much, Caroline.